All right, thank y'all for coming to our September general meeting. Before we get started with our agenda, ask everybody to settle down. Before we get started with our agenda, I want us to have at least a moment of silence for what happened in Wyoming, Georgia, at high school, for loss of a lot of students and teachers at that school. So just ask everybody just to have a moment of silence for those who lost their lives in the unnecessary shooting at Alapatchie High School. All right, thank you. Thank everybody for showing up. I'm gonna let everybody get settled in and we'll get started with the agenda. So for those who don't know, I'm Elwood Paul, president of the Ned County NAACP. Before we finish, I go through the agenda. I'm gonna also let member at large Ray Harvin come up and give us a quick prayer. Now,
if you would bow your head with me. Father in heaven, we are just so thankful that you have allowed us to be here tonight to do your work through this Gwinnett NAACP and through the NAACP National. God, we are thankful that you have allowed us this time and this space. But as said earlier, Lord, we are also praying for our children everywhere and in all schools. And we're praying for parents and the teachers all over this nation and in our own neighborhoods. Lord, we also pray that you will allow the NAACP to do the job that you know that it can do. But never forgetting to always to call on your name, because we know that it's not about us, that it's about you. So thank you, Lord. We thank you for all those blessings. We pray that the food that we have here also will nourish our body and our strength. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. Amen.
all right, thank you, Mr. Harvin. So first order of business is we're gonna get an acceptance of the minutes from our August general meeting. So can I have a motion from the floor for one of our members to accept the minutes from last month's meeting? You gotta give me a reason what you motioning for. You got to say that, Tracy.
Motion to approve the minutes for August.
August, Jim. Can I get a second?
I second the motion to accept the minutes from August.
All right, second Vice President John Cox. Any discussion? All those in favor of accepting our minutes from our August general meeting, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it. All right, so going over our old business, next agenda item is gonna be about our Freedom Fund. So we do need members of our branch to assist us in our Freedom Fund. For those who are not familiar with the Freedom Fund is like a gala where we do a fundraising event to help raise funds for the branch. Pretty much this year, we're gonna be looking to honor some of our old guard, long time people that's been doing work with Gwinnett NAACP. We're gonna try to honor some of the couple politicians that we feel like have done good work in our community, as well as, like I said, some of our volunteers who over the years have done a good job working with us and volunteering with us. But it's, with all the hard work we do in terms of organizing, knocking on doors like what we're gonna be doing this fall, countless phone calls, legal redress takes from complaints coming into the community. Gonna be a time for us to let our hair down, have a good time, and just for a change, not get so caught up in all the ills and wills that we have to deal with doing the type of work that we do. So we are looking for more volunteers to be on that committee. So if you've got some skills in event planning, definitely, feel free to volunteer for that. Jacques Laurent is our first vice president. Please see him after tonight's meeting. You can also email the secretary if you want to show interest in the meeting. Jacques, for those who don't know, he's with the Blue suit jacket on in the back. So see him after the meeting. For those of you that are here live and for those that are watching online, please email the secretary at secretary@gwinnettnaacp.com. Again, that's secretary@gwinnettnaacp.com. Just email her if you got some skills in the event plan. If you don't, you just want to participate and figure out how you can help. No, you still email the secretary and show your interest, or if you're here with us live, speak with First Vice President Jack Laurent about that. Next agenda item, we are looking for some members to join our communications committee. So that committee is responsible for running our social media, so our Twitter account, Instagram, Facebook, helping us with StreamYard and streaming live. So we are looking for members that, got skills in media, social media, writing newsletters for us, press releases, press advisory, wherever your skill may fall into in that world. We are looking for members to be part of that committee. You can email me directly with that, president@gwinnettnaacp.com, president@gwinnettnaacp.com, if you're interested in being part of our communications committee. Update on our health committee, which is our next agenda item, old business. So we just started a new health committee. As far as I know, the Gwinnett NAACP has never had a health committee. So they will be doing some advocacy work around both physical and mental health, looking at disparities within the county, seeing how we can organize around addressing these issues. If you're interested in being part of that committee, you can email me, president@gwinnettnaacp.com. And for those of you who are here, if you're a nurse, if you're in the mental health field, or in just in the overall general health field, please see me after tonight's meeting or email me. Come on in. You can email me if you're interested in serving on that committee. They will meet every fourth Thursday of the month at 7:30 virtually. So if you're interested in being part of that committee, just email me at president@gwinnettnaacp.com. I'll put you plugged into that committee. It'll be our first committee meeting that will take place at the end of this month, which will be the last Thursday of the month at 7:30. All right, so going on to new business, I'm gonna ask First Vice President Jack Laurent to come up, talk about our state convention, which will take place on October the 10th. So I'll let him give us a few words and go over a few things about the upcoming convention for those who may want to go with us to Augusta for the state convention.
Quick second here. Awesome. Good evening, everyone. So for our state convention, we're really excited. Now, anybody knows who's gonna be there? And has anybody been getting the emails about the state convention? No?
Yeah.
Okay. So who's been to a state convention before? Any hands? Okay. The princess has. Nobody else? Okay. So a little bit about the state convention. So as we meet as local units monthly, this is the opportunity for all the units to come together and do multiple things. For one thing, we kind of come to get together and let our hairs down and kind of get to see each other and know each other and the work we're doing around the state. But in addition, we get a lot of training. So I could just kind of give you a quick run through of some of the trainings that's going to be happening. So it starts on Thursday. And it starts on Thursday and with a press conference, leadership luncheon. There's a dinner for the soul and a mass meeting. Typically that's at a church and we have prayer together and it's usually pretty nice. Some good singing and good some good word going on there. Then on Friday, we begin continental breakfast. Everybody's registering, getting in there and participating. We have a legal, redress, workshop. We have a political action workshop. We have the Butler, membership luncheon. And Dr. Benjamin, Chavez, who's, one of our past national presidents, will be there for that luncheon. He'll be the keynote speaker for that. Economic Development Workshop last year was really great. All the presidents of all the Black chambers around the state of Georgia were there, and it was very powerful. And from what I'm understanding, it's going to be the same kind of thing where they're going to come and talk about why we fight, you know? And one of the things that one of the speakers shared with us is we fought for the civil rights in the 60s. And because it was minority driven, 90% of the benefit went to people other than us. And after the fight with the George Floyd and some of that fight recently, 90% again went to people other than us. So we got to be present to make sure that we are getting the benefit of the work we have. There's a health workshop, and then on Saturday, that's usually the main day. We have the main day. We have the Game Changer breakfast and branch administration workshop, where there's training for the president, secretary, and treasurers together. And I've been to a couple of those, and it's been great. Then we have the plenary sessions, which is where all the members, delegates meet and discuss some of the issues. Often when you have the plenary sessions, there's a part of it where you vote. So if there's an issue that you want to address, we could write a resolution locally, vote it in, and then bring it to the state conference for it to be adopted statewide. And if it's adopted statewide, then you could bring it to national convention to be adopted nationally. And I saw a few of those when I was at the national convention a couple months ago, and it was really awesome. When I saw that they were talking about Haiti, I'm like, oh wow, somebody's talking about Haiti. Came all the way from a branch up in Illinois. So basically throughout the day, there's going to be multiple workshops. This year is not an election year for the state. So basically, it's a 2-year session. We got elected last year, so we won't be elected again until next year. So most of the activity is going to be around all the work that needs to be done, especially the upcoming election. Now, some of the speakers, and I was trying to pull that up. Some of the people that will be speaking, we have Rosalind Brock, we have President Derek Johnson, and I mentioned Benjamin Chavez, and who else? And a couple others. But basically, we are ready to come together a month from now. Okay, ready to get ourselves all fired up and get ourselves out to make sure that every single person that we fought for to have an opportunity to vote, to get to vote. Okay, so this is important that we all get their information in terms of registration. Our unit has gotten registered. The registration per person is $50. And then of course there's the cost if you're going to stay at a hotel and so forth. And there's different a la carte. But I'm going to request that our secretary make sure that we get everybody's information. And it's in Augusta, by the way. I forgot to mention that. It's in Augusta at a really nice, at the Marriott Bonvoy. Really nice hotel, very scenic area. It's off the waters of a nice, beautiful lake. So it'll be an opportunity for us to come together and relax, learn, and get ready to get the work done for the next 2 months. For the next, I guess it'll be a month left. So that's about it.
The dates.
Dates, October 10, which is a Thursday, through October 12th, which is Saturday. Okay? No, Augusta. Any other questions?
Is there a discount for the hotel for?
There's a discount for it, and there's a overflow hotel as well. I think we had to expand our reservation for the main hotel. And our executive director would be the one, that would, see, what we have left. But basically, if there's no more room at the main hotel, there's an overflow hotel. But there'll be place to receive everyone. So, am I gonna see everybody there? Oh, God.
Sorry, everybody that don't show up, y'all gonna owe us a trip.
Come on, we gotta get a bus, get everybody down there.
Y'all gonna owe us a trip to the national convention in Charlotte. Somebody had a question?
Will we still have the general meeting on the 10th
Of October?
of October? Yes.
That's a Saturday. I mean, that's a Thursday, right? Oh, that's right, we may have to move it.
Yeah, we may have to move that. I forgot that. And you got me doing Jim. Oh, yeah, we're gonna have to move that. It probably get moved to 17. What should we quit? Oh, look right up.
The
You
17th,
got to call and tell them we need to change our meeting date.
you guys see that in the email.
I,
And the 17th is the school board meeting.
we'll work that out. We'll have to figure out how we gonna make that work with our general meeting. I forgot our general meeting part. So continuing on new business, so a couple of things we do gotta ratify at this general meeting is the number of member at large that will be on the ballot. Right now, we have 4 member at large. Given the size of our branch, it's typically around about what you typically would want for a branch, 3 or 4 member at large. Since we already got 4 now, we just need a motion from the floor to keep that number at 4 as far as our at-large members that serve on our executive committee. Can I have a motion from the floor
So moved.
to make that our number of at-large member of 4?
I'm motion that we keep it at 4. And like,
Can I get a second?
Seconded.
Second by First Vice President Jacques Laurent. Motion given by Linda Tyler. Any discussion? All right, those in favor, keeping our at-large members at 4 for our executive committee for the upcoming November election for the Gwinnett NAACP, not regularly elected election. Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Right, ayes have it. Our at-large members are still at 4. All right, so this portion of our meeting, we're gonna, I've been talking to different members across the spectrum about serving on the nominating committee. The role of the nominating committee is to basically interview and also check anybody that wants to run for an elected officer position within the branch. That includes president, assistant secretary, secretary, treasurer, assistant treasurer, or the at-large positions, and first and second vice president. So their role is to check everybody's membership, make sure it's in good standing, make sure they joined at a certain point. They was a member at a certain point of the year in order to run, and then they'll select a slate that will be on the ballot. And then anybody else that want to run, they would have to be endorsed by 3 members of the branch to also get their name on the ballot. So for instance, if the current nominating committee say, hey, we want to keep the same people we already got that's in place, then if somebody else wants to run for secretary, that person will have to find 3 members of our branch to endorse them, submit that to the nominating committee, and then they will validate whether that person's eligible to run, and then validate whether those 3 people that endorse them are actual members of our branch and have been members in good standing within 30 days from the October meeting. So that being said, the names or list of people that have agreed to serve on the nominating committee is Mrs. Linda Tyler, Tracy Fox, who's also in attendance tonight, Brenda Boylan, Ahmed Henry, and one of our at-large members, Ray Harvey. So I want to make a motion to accept those names as part of our nominating committee. Can I get a second? Can I get a motion first? Sorry. Motion. Can I get a motion to accept the names I just given? I'll repeat the names for the record since we are streaming live. Linda Tyler, Ray Harvey, Brenda Boylan, Tracy Fox, and, Linda Tyler, Ray Harvin, Tracy Fox, Brenda Boyle, and Name Henry. So can I get a motion to accept those names as our nominating committee from the group?
Motion that we accept the names on the list for the nominating committee.
Thank you. Second.
Dominique will second.
All right, second by Dominique. Motion given by, second by President John Cox. Further discussion? Those in favor of accepting those names as our members for our nominating committee, say aye.
Aye.
You opposed? All right, ayes have it. Those names will be accepted as our nominating committee for our upcoming branch election. Once they have their first meeting and figure out who's going to chair the committee and who's going to be the secretary, information will be given out to branch members or who to contact if you're interested in running for an officer position. Now we at the committee reports section of our meeting. Before I allow each committee to come up and give their respective reports, I first like to go over the dates that each committee meets. So the education committee meets every fourth Monday of the month, 7:30 p.m. and that's virtually. If you're interested in being part of that committee, you can join the group meet that comes out with the email, if you're on our email list, for that committee, or you can contact education chair at educationchair@gwinnettnaacp.com. Again, it's education chair @gwinnettnaacp.com. If the legal redress committee, legal redress doesn't mean we have a group of attorneys. These are volunteers who are organized around handling any complaints coming in from the community, such as people calling looking for a place to stay, people calling because they feel like they're being harassed, whatever, people calling because they feel like they're being a victim of police violence. That committee is designed to provide anybody in our community resources in terms of information to help with their situation. In certain cases, if we have attorneys that we know of that specialize in their particular situation, that we can refer them to those attorneys. Otherwise, we may refer them to an organization that has a group of lawyers that may specialize in their issue. So that's legal redress. They meet every first Friday of the month at 7:30. Political Action Committee pretty much handles voter registration, door-to-door canvassing, phone banking, text banking, and then organizing around policy change, both at the local level as well as the state level. So they meet every third Monday at 8 p.m. Our membership committee, so if you in retail or customer service, it's probably a great committee for you. Like to talk, as chaired by fabulous Tiger Harris. If you're interested in being part of that committee and helping us increase our membership, please email him at membershipchair@gwinnettnaacp.com. Again, that's membershipchair@gwinnettnaacp.com. And again, they meet every first Thursday at 7:30. And then, of course, we do have our youth council. So if you're a young person and you want to get into advocacy work, they just got activated around the same time we did. And you can reach out to YCadvisor@gwinnettnaacp.com. Again, that's Y as in Yankee, C as in Charlie, advisor@gwinnettnaacp.com. Or you can contact the secretary at ycsecretary@gwinnettnaacp.com if you're interested in being part of our youth council. And that being said, I will, since the first report is John, I'll let him get his out the way for education. So I'll ask John to come up and read his report for the education.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
This education report is for August 26th, 2024 at the committee meeting. Started promptly. The education committee meeting for the Gwinnett NAACP started promptly at 7:30 with prayer and introductions of new members of the committee. The meeting was recorded for minutes. In old business, we had updates on our recent accomplishments. So what we did was we had some short-term goals. And we accomplished those short-term goals. So the short-term goals were to reactivate the student discipline board. It was missing. And that's where you find all the current information on what kind of discipline problems they're having. It's category blocked out, and you can see from school to school how it's going. It's a necessary matrix if you're looking for, or if you deal with student discipline for creating policy and looking at where you can help. So you can see where most of the discipline issues are and what category is elevated. We also had a short-term goal of presenting our long-term goals to the Board of Education. And we did that. So on August 15th of 2024, I spoke and presented our two long-term goals to the Gwinnett County School Board. Those two goals consisted of a request for the revision of the ODR form, which is an office discipline referral form, and a proposal to provide equity in after-school activities and wraparound services. Contact was made, well, after I gave the speech, contact was made with the executive director of academics and academic sports. And we exchanged information in order to have a discussion. That discussion is coming up shortly. So those objectives were accomplished. For new business, we had new members in, and so we had to recap what our goals were to bring them up to speed. So that we recapped our remaining goals and why the other goals were necessary. We had some asks. We asked for volunteers for training to fill partnership roles for after-school programs. So part of what we're asking is to partner with the school system to provide programs in the areas most necessary. So the most hard-hit areas where correction is necessary, we feel like you can connect. If you can connect, you can correct. So instead of having to deal with cultural competency and all those other things or whatever, if we do the work, then it might be more successful. So we want to partner with the school board to get the training around the areas that are most needed and then to perform that work. So we're asking for volunteers for that. We're asking for volunteers to work on our proposals. So we have a number of proposals for the year that we are working on with the
Thank you.
Oh, I wanted to. So, sorry about that, y'all. Screen kind of. All right, so man, everybody settle down a little bit. Sorry about that. We kind of lost the signal line. I don't know what. Max, everybody just settle down. John, Tiger. John. All right, so back to our meeting. Sorry about that again. Some kind of way we lost the signal line, but they're putting it, so apologize about that. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish the committee report. So I'm gonna start with membership. So membership chair unfortunately wasn't able to make the meeting due to a health issue, so I ran the membership meeting. A couple of things we went over was from the July meeting. Stated the goal for the branch. One of the goals that we had set out in the membership committee was to double membership by the end of 2025. Currently, our membership, and I guess while we own membership, I know some of you have reached out to the branch and it says you have not received any membership information from the branch. Do apologize about that. Our organization was inactive from October of 2023 to June of 2024. It took us about a month after that to kind of get back going. So secretary and assistant secretary just recently got access to the membership portal to get everybody membership uploaded. However, there is a glitch in the system that is preventing them from uploading those batches, and National is working to fix that glitch. This doesn't affect your membership. Whenever you paid your money for your membership, whether it's October of last year, September 30th of last year, January of this year, we will go in and correct the date of when you actually join so that you're eligible to vote in this upcoming election. So just give us some time, or at least really give National some time, because we're really waiting on them to fix the error. And it affected both our secretary and assistant secretary. Neither one of them can go in and upload the batches. So I'm assuming that whatever the issue is, a technical issue across the board within the organization. So once they get that issue cleared up, then we'll get all your memberships loaded. You'll start getting a bunch of emails from National and a digital card, and then eventually your physical card. So just give National some time, and give us all some time to get that fixed. Hopefully within the next week or two, it'll be resolved. But rest assured, you will be eligible to vote in this year's election. If there's an issue, God forbid, they haven't fixed it by the time we get to November the 8th, when we have our branch election. We have a team that comes after the nominating committee, which is our election supervisory committee. And it's their job to make sure that everybody that are members, paid members, get an active ballot so they can vote in this year's election. You'll typically get it two ways. You'll get it by text message as well as email. But to finish the committee report, the committee also discussed making a third of our membership life members. So for those who don't know or new to the Gwinnett NAACP, our membership fee is $30 annually, paid once a year. However, we're looking to at least have a third of our membership be life members. And there are 3 tiers. We have the Silver Life, which is $750, or 10 payments of $75, whether that's monthly or annually, however you want to make the payment. Then we have the Gold Life, which is $150, 10 payments, which would be $1,500, and then Diamond, which would be $2,500. One of the things that was previously discussed in the membership committee is partnering with other organizations or restaurants and different businesses throughout the community. So if you become a life member, once you paid your life membership in full, that we will try to get you some type of discounts and things at different restaurants for being a life member of the NAACP. But the reason we want, from a branch perspective, a third of our membership to be life members, one of the things that does is keep our membership, keep our organization in compliance. So for the NAACP branch never to be inactive, we have to have 50 active members on the roster. So if we can get a third of our membership to be life members and our membership grows to 600,000, 700,000, 3,000 people, and a third of those people are life members, it at least gives a 30, 40-year gap where we're never out of compliance because our membership had dipped below that 50 member gap. Another thing it does is it does help double our revenue in terms of our membership. All these things we got, all this technology we got, this stuff, we got to pay for it. Unfortunately, we don't get it for free, and National don't pay for it. So as a branch, we're on our own in terms of raising funding and getting resources for the branch. And so that will help the branch be able to pay for things like this, but help the branch in terms of being able to do things in the community. One of those things like canvassing, again, normally when we hire canvassers or people to help us with GOTV campaign, that's money circulating back into the community because we're hiring your children or we're hiring you to do that during that period of time. So it just gives us some flexibility to be able to raise revenue. One of the goals, at least one of my goals as president, is to eventually get us an office building, something we haven't had. I don't even think we had it the time when Reverend Stewart was president. We never had an actual office. So one of my goals is to within the next year or two, to have us a location where we can meet regularly at that's a place of our own. So having more life members, more people become a life member is one of the ways we're looking to do that, among other different things that we're going to do. And it's just one of the things we're setting out to do. And so I hope this, I know what y'all be paying for these fraternities and all these other organizations that y'all are part of. So our life memberships is cheap compared to what y'all be paying to be AKA or Delta or Alpha or Omega or whatever organization you join. So $75 is not a lot to ask to renew your membership. And it's a good thing. Again, once you make your 10 payments, you're done. You don't have to, pay the annual $30 a year. So that's one of the things we're looking to do in the membership committee. The final thing that we discussed was going over working with some of the churches. When we do our voter registration drive at the churches, we do membership drives, trying to get the different members of the different churches throughout the county to join our branch and become members. So that ends the committee report for membership. I'm just going to kind of run all these together since I'm running all these different committees, at least for the short term. So the political action committee report, pretty much in that committee, we went over how myself, as well as second vice president, education chair John Cox, we went down to the Capitol and advocated about the African American AP course. They had a legislative session in which we explained to them that the superintendent had no power to remove that AP course from the curriculum, since it was outside of the scope of the state superintendent. And I'm talking about the state, not local superintendent, not Dr. Watts. I'm talking about Richard Woods, who was the state superintendent, who wanted to remove the course because he felt like it was divisive. So we explained to a lot of the people in the state legislature that he had no control over that course. State superintendent only controls K through 12 curriculum. AP course is college curriculum, just like dual enrollment courses. So they did cut our time a little short, but we got the message across between me and John speaking, as well as me telling John to try to email some of the state school board people to make them aware, members, to make them aware that, this is outside of y'all scope. State superintendent ain't got no control over this. And so, of course, I know a lot of you all seen in the paper that he reversed his decision. Wasn't really no decision for him to reverse. He had no ability to take it away to begin with. So we did discuss that in the meeting. We did go over some of the voter registration drives that we've done. We've been in Norcross. So far this week, we've been in Shiloh High School, Grayson High School. And so we discussed that. We discussed a timeline of what we're going to try to do our Get Out the Vote campaign, which will probably start end of September, sometime early October, where we're going to do door-to-door canvassing, phone banking, text banking, trying to get people out to vote in this year's election. Finally, we asked all members, whether you're in the political action committee or not, to help come out to some of these meetings, county meetings like the voter registration election, which meet every third Wednesday at 6 p.m. So we asked them if you're available and you're free, and we're going to be asking some of the churches too that, hey, maybe this Wednesday night, instead of y'all having normal ballot class, y'all come and join us at the Board of Registration election meeting. For those who are not familiar with the Board of Registration election, those are people that make the rules around the election in Gwinnett County. So for those who may not be aware, people, groups are showing up to these meetings and trying to get you all kicked off the voter rolls, especially those of you who may have kids or family members and you got an apartment or something set up in your name in a different state. They're going there saying you're trying to vote in two different places. So again, we're asking the members, if you're available, come out, so, be with us, because a lot of times just being in the room can change the whole temperature of some of the things that's going on at these meetings. So that again, they meet every third Wednesday in this building at GJAC, the auditorium downstairs, at 6 o'clock. Board of Education is another one that we're asking members to come out and support. So those of you, especially are advocates in the education arena, or just care about the kids, got kids in the school system, or just care in general, please join us every third Thursday, at 7 p.m. at the Board of Education meeting. And that ends the Political Action Committee report. And the other report I do will be on legal redress. So legal redress committee, as it stands right now, there's no outstanding complaints per my last conversation with the secretary. During the monthly meeting, for those who are on the legal redress committee, we went over how to properly use the NAACP email to communicate to residents of Gwinnett County with a complaint. We discussed a number of short-term goals. One of those short-term goals is to visit the Gwinnett County Jail. So for those of you who may not be familiar, there was some incidents going on in 2022 where a lot of young Black men died in the Gwinnett County jails. So we do want to visit the facility, see what's going on. So we're hoping to take some of the members in legal redress to that on that visit, as well as some of our executive committee members who may want to be part of that visit. Another thing we discussed was establishing a relationship with local law enforcement in Gwinnett County. That way we can all be on the same page, have the same goals, communicate the same issues. I personally have met with James McClure, as the chief of police of Gwinnett County. He's the largest police force in the county. And I met Sheriff Taylor several times in passing. We actually supposed to meet today, but schedule was kind of tight, so we was unable to make that meeting happen today. But I do plan to meet with him in the near future so we can kind of get on the same page, not only about what's going on in the jails, but also with working together, make sure something like that doesn't happen again, as well as making sure on election day that his people, because normally the sheriff department are at the polls, we don't want any Black or any other voters being intimidated about voting. So I want to make sure that his people understand what the rules and regulations are, what the laws are, how far, people can go in terms of trying to intimidate voters from voting or, giving people wrong information. Now we'll be there. When I say we, we're talking about any of our members that are going to volunteer as election protection or poll monitors. So we will have people at the polls. Typically, you have to be about 150 feet away from the door, just monitoring, engaging with different people as they come in and out of the polls in case there's some type of issue. So me and Sheriff Taylor will have some discussion around that as well. One of the things legal redress is we're going to also look to do is have a Know Your Rights campaign. So you get stopped by the police, communicating to the community about, what are your rights, what you should say, what you shouldn't say. And then, and we're gonna do something, and I know John didn't mention this, but we're gonna do something similar with that in education. Pretty much that will be more centered around parents, teaching parents how to be an advocate for their students. Because we know that's needed. A lot of, like I said, Gwinnett has one of the highest. Well, I said this, one of the young ladies that's one of our guests tonight. Gwinnett has one of the highest discipline rates around Black and brown students out of all the metro counties. So we want to teach parents how to be advocates for their students. So we're going to have a Know Your Rights campaign that's revolved around education. And so a lot of these things will take place next year. typically, the even number years, because of how Georgia got these crazy laws set up, the PAC dominates our committee. You know, most of the things we're doing is GOTV getting out the vote because they got the board, school board elections are in May, judicial elections are in May, and in the fall are your regular election, whether it's president or governor, depending on what race, US Senate. So those other committees, I wouldn't say take a back seat because they're still doing work and they're still engaging in different committees, the different meetings that happen around the county. Odd number of years, things kind of slow down politically, but our unit plans on still being very active in the community, and that's when a lot of those other committees step to the forefront, doing stuff in the community. So like I said, legal redress, our new health committee will have some health initiatives and some health forums that'll be coming out soon. I see one of the members of the committee doing this here. So yeah, they'll get their chance to kind of have the spotlight in 2025 and be very active in doing things in the community. And then we'll try to find a little window for them to squeeze some stuff in on these even number years, but it's just very challenging because in Georgia, the primary election, getting people out to vote in that is just equally as important as, especially in Gwinnett County, as the fall elections, because we do got school boards election that's taking place, and then we got the judges, which a lot of people kind of have a tendency to overlook. The final thing in legal redress, we discussed a contact list of, we was able to put together a contact list with just a list of different organizations that we do get these calls about people being in a house, people being abused, people needing a lawyer. We do got a big contact list of different groups, organizations that we can kind of refer people to. Because a lot of times we get these complaints, people just looking for help. They're just looking for information. And that's kind of what legal redress job is to do, is to help them, connect them from point A to point B to, to bridge that gap. Because again, these people, they don't know who to call if they're about to get evicted. They don't know who to call if they're unhoused. And so because our organization is growing and trying to build out these different networks with different organizations, we try to get the information and try to help bridge that gap. So that was the final thing we discussed. And at this time, our final committee report will come from our youth council. So I don't know if Reese or Keoti or our Madam President, youth president, Alana Atkins is going to give their report. I guess she's going to come up and give their report. So I'll take a step to the side and give a report on our youth council.
Hello.
Hi, hello.
So our most recent meeting was Sunday, September 8th, and we opened with our welcome and formalities, a brief introduction by me, followed by the youth advisor, Keoti Atkins, who shared the agenda. The council's focus remains on nurturing leaders of great courage, building strong community, and inspiring significant change. And we passed the motion about the previous minutes. They were approved. The three main points of this meeting were recognizing how we are now compliant, the upcoming voting events, and inviting people to the Thursday general body meeting, which is today. And so the recap, Keoti Atkins provided a recap of the great news of the report, and that the organization voting board has been submitted, and how we weren't compliant before, but now we are. And as of August, there were only 7 compliant youth organizations in Georgia. And then about the voting events, I recommended that everyone who had successfully completed the voting class view the calendar and register to attend one of the voting registration events at the schools. We also have information about the New Mercies Christian Center event and helping register new youth voting members for the voting event on September 18th. And then Keoti Atkins and Reese Walker reminded everyone about the upcoming meeting, which is now today. And the summary is the primary emphasis on engagement for the upcoming election and attendance at the next general body meeting.
Thank you.
And again, anybody that wants to work with our youth, please reach out to Keoti Atkins, who's in the back and is hand up. You can email him if you're watching online at ycadvisor@GwinnettNAACP.com. It's YC, Y as in Yankee, C as in Charlie, advisor@GwinnettNAACP.com. He can use all the help he can get because we always can use more parents helping our youth. He's also our AXO chair. For those who are not familiar with AXO, AXO is a competition that's around STEM as well as arts. So please see him if you're interested in working with our youth. We can always use more parents and then, yeah, join. Again, if you're under 13 and under, you can get a life membership with the youth council. It's only $100, or 4 payments of $25. Or you can pay, for those, I understand everybody may not have it. So you can pay $10 and become a youth member for the regular general membership. If you're 14 and older, life membership is $400. I forgot what the breakdown it is of $50 payments that High National got it. Or if you're 14 and older and you want to become a life member with the youth council. So please reach out to them. Go to our website, GwinnettNAACP.com if you're looking to join. Again, that's both the youth or the adult branch. That's GwinnettNAACP.com. So as far as our finance report, for those of you who are actual members, if you want a copy of our finance report, please email the secretary@GwinnettNAACP.com. Again, secretary@GwinnettNAACP.com for an update on our finance report from the treasurer. Secretary, you're gonna email the secretary and not the treasurer because she has to verify the membership since we only released the report to the actual members. That being said, I get a motion to accept all our committee reports except for our finance report from the floor. Can I get that motion?
I make a motion that we accept all the committee reports, except the finance report.
Can I get a second? Second. All right, for those in favor of accepting of our committee reports except for the finance report, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it. And that ends all of our reports. So at this time, we're gonna move on to the second half of our meeting tonight. I'm gonna ask Ms. Michelle Davis come up. She's a regional organizer here in Gwinnett County. She's gonna do a presentation on Project 2025. Once she finishes her presentation, we will have Ms. Mikayla Arciaga come up. She's gonna talk about how the education side of Project 2025. I would ask, if you got any questions, please wait until both parties have done their presentation. You're more than welcome to ask questions.
I want to thank you guys. Thank you for having us, but I want to also introduce Monica McCoy. She's also an organizer for the project 2025 and an expert, much better than I am. So I don't know, we're going to have the screen that comes up. How many people are familiar with the project 2025? Oh, okay, well, great. That's good. We were halfway there. So I don't know if you're familiar or you really just you've heard about it or you know any of the things that are really on the project 2025. But I think one of the things I would be very alarming with it being Gwinnett County. Most people move to Gwinnett County for what? Exactly. So on that, on the project 2025, one of the things that they talk about is that public school kids will have to have an exam of being military entrance. And your private school students will not have to do that. So to me, that's very alarming for anyone that is in the Gwinnett County, or if you know someone that has a kid in public school, if you have a kid in public school, to me, that is right there. If we could stop it, mic drop, that would be enough not to vote for, you know, yeah, right. Thank you. Right. Don't say the name, So to me, that is a very alarming, bells going off for kids. And if you have a kid or like I say, know someone that has someone that falls in that line to have their kid to have a military exam. I mean, just think about that for a minute. A military exam that would automatically put your child there. And if you're not at the level that can afford your child to go to a private school, then look what happens. And how many of us, and tell me who would that affect mostly? Brown and black skinned people. So to me, that is really, really alarming. I'm not sure if the, we have,
It's coming.
okay,
coming up.
okay, great. So, anybody else know one or many, because it's a 922 page document. So a lot of those, well, yeah, I think this is the wrong one. I don't want to pass this.
It's up.
Okay, great. A lot of us, like I said, it's 922 page. A lot of us are not gonna read that. That's probably why they put it in a 922 page document. Not to say that we're not intelligent enough to read it, but we have a lot of we have busy schedules. We have a lot of things we're gonna do. Really, who will take time to really read it thoroughly, that you can understand it. And then also, it was been a secret, and they didn't think we would find it. But for a lot of us, thank God for Taraji P. Henson. I mean, because a lot of us did not even know about it until Taraji said it at the BET Music Awards that night. And everybody was like, what is this Project 2025 all about? You know, which was great. That was a good way that she got people involved to go really see about it. And let me say this to you too. Project 2025 did not just come about. So don't be alarmed that we just found a hidden secret, found something that's out there. This has been a secret that has been going on since Ronald Reagan has been in office. Reaganomics was one of the things that were implemented by the Heritage Foundation. Let me use that name. And a lot of us don't know that, but every year there's been something that's been implemented a little bit by a little bit by a little bit. But now since we found somebody that was in office 4 years ago that they could pawn and use, and now we can fast track it a little bit faster and put those things that's in it that would affect all of us at some point in our life. We are affected by this Project 2025 document. So, and the other day, and forgive me for not knowing this because I hate getting up in front of people and not having all the facts, but I was reading that they have something new now, other than Project 2025, that they're implementing. So you have to understand too, he is being used, and if it wasn't him, it's someone else. So we just need to become vigilant of, even if he will not win, that they will not find someone else to use to get their agenda through. So as we say, we need to learn to vote blue down the ballot because it affects us. But this is where I'm going to let Monica come and really go through this presentation a little bit more thoroughly. And if there are any questions, we're both here to answer, but I think we're going to wait till the policy part is being brought to you. Everybody, Monica McCoy.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Let's give Michelle another round of applause. So I'm so excited to talk to you guys briefly about Project 2025. If you do want to go ahead and access the full playbook, as Michelle referenced, it is a 922 page document. You can certainly go ahead and download it at this website here. You can go to the next slide. So here are the 4 strategic pillars that we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to briefly talk about the background on Project 2025. We're also going to talk about the Heritage Foundation, also the pillars of policy, and then finally, Kamala's take and debrief. Let me go to the next slide. The next slide. All right, so it is a 922 conservative playbook, but I will tell you, I do recommend you go and look at it at least once before the election. And the reason for that is because a lot of times you only hear the highlights of who's in that Project 2025 playbook. But literally, if you think about the fact that he who must not be named tonight always mentions that he had nothing to do with it, well, he's mentioned that document over 250 times. In addition to that, what we know is that the Heritage Foundation gets a lot of credit for this document, but on that first page of Project 2025, there are over 100 organizations in there who are mentioned, who also are part of this document. So next slide. So I literally think this quote says a lot. So they don't want to just win the elections. They want to make sure that all the power is in one branch of the government. Which branch is that, you guys? The executive branch. So they don't want the power to be anymore in the legislative branch. They're already taking over the judicial branch, but they want all the power to be with the President of the United States. Next slide. And so literally the Heritage Foundation, as Michelle said, is not new. They've been around for decades, quietly doing the work since the Reagan administration. This organization has a lot of money. They go and file lawsuits all the time. One of our recent examples is affirmative action. So many of you guys saw last summer what the Supreme Court did with really taking away affirmative action when it comes to helping with jobs, and also when it comes to helping with education admission and for college education. And we're starting to see how that plays out. Harvard just released their numbers for this year, and we are seeing that the numbers are going down for Black students being admitted to these institutions. And so if we go to the next page, what you'll see is that they have a lot of money to spend. And they don't mind really, focusing on their pillars of making sure that they want to make America great again. And going back to the times of the 70s and 80s, what they feel was the time when you had that conservative, those conservative values where everything was good. Not that it was good for us, but where it was good for them. If we go to the next slide. So these people are very busy. They stay on Capitol Hill. They stay meeting with our congressional representatives. So if you think about it, they have over 400 meetings every year with our congressional staff. Think about the fact that they have 80 Heritage alumni who are currently serving on Capitol Hill, and that they are in front doing congressional testimonials at least 30 times per year. I'm not talking about over a decade. That's like every year they have this calendar of going out there, making sure they're advocating and influencing policy. So as we go to the next slide. I'm not going to read all the ones here, but I want to draw your attention to this apple here. 550 school board members across the United States are Project 2025 members. So if you think about infiltrating your Board of Education, infiltrating your boards, you really want to pay attention to what's going here, because they're making sure they're keeping their pipeline going. So it's not enough to say, okay, we're going to put someone on here once. They have their own academy. So just like the young lady came up and she presented on the young people's version for the NAACP, they have their Young Leaders Program, and they have students graduating from it on an annual basis. So just in 2023, they graduated 157 young people, because they know that this is not just a play for today. They're thinking about not only their annual plan of what's happening this year, they're also thinking about their strategic plan, their next 3 to 10 years of how they're going to continue to play this out. Let's go to the next slide. As you can see, they have almost $500 million in assets. And so they don't mind, litigation. They stay in the courts. The reason we don't hear about a lot of their court cases because they lose a lot. But then they have that one major win, like affirmative action. And unfortunately, I know that it's been presented as a win with the Fearless Fund, but it really is a huge setback for us what happened with the Fearless Fund. So that fund was based here in Atlanta, and unfortunately, they are no longer able to give grants to Black and underrepresented founders because it was presented as if it is discriminatory for them to be giving funds out to people of a certain race. And so literally, this group, their think tank, they're going to keep doing these cases. They're going to keep litigating because they have a lot of money. And unfortunately, with organizations like Fearless Fund or smaller organizations, they basically just keep litigating until you run out of money. That's their strategy when they're coming against Black and brown organizations. So we'll quickly go over the pillars and policy. And so the way I want you guys, and I hate that we have to show his face, but y'all forgive that picture up there. But the way I want you guys to remember the strategic pillars is P cubed plus T. So first, policy. They are always looking at how they can influence laws, how they can make sure they're influencing government regulations. When it comes to personnel, we'll go into a little more detail, but basically, this leader only wants people who believe the way that he does. So if you work for the federal government, you have to be someone who believes the way that he does if you're going to keep your job. If not, then you're going to have to go find another job. The playbook, not going to go into any more details there, but 922 pages broken down by all these different topics. And then the training, they're going to keep on educating, keep on bringing additional people in, keep on making sure they keep that pipeline robust. So when it comes to some of the things in there, the first thing I want to talk about is LGBTQ plus rights. Basically, they're looking to overturn it being legal for someone to be of a same-sex couple. They will not be able to have the right to estate, medical power of attorney, or also adoption rights. One of the things that also gets lost in there that doesn't get as much press or coverage is that they also want to turn over interracial marriage. So if you think about the number of interracial couples that we have here in the United States, they want to reverse the law Loving versus Virginia, which in 1967 made it legal to marry someone outside of your race. So that's something that does not get as much press, but certainly something that he's looking to implement when he does not get into office, if he were to get into office. I want to spend a little more time on here because this is the NAACP. So when it comes to education, if you guys think about the fact that most of our kids go to public school, most of our kids are getting funded for their education, by the government, by the funding that comes from the federal government down to the state government, and then it's going down to the local government. And so what he wants to do, and if you guys remember when he was in office, the really incompetent lady that he had in place to be over the Department of Education. So, if you think about, it honestly, you have to laugh because if you think about it deeply, you would just be like, this cannot be America to have someone so incompetent in that role. But he's looking to do that again, to really bring it back to those days of privatizing education, which means that basically only the elites will continue to have a great education and everyone else is just go figure it out on your own. What I will say about this was really scary is that what Trump wants to do is to continue to make sure that our kids end up being way behind. And so if you think about the fact that in third grade, the number of kids that fail that reading test, they project are going to be in prison by the time they graduate. So it's really to keep billionaires, because that privatized prison system is really keeping his friends very wealthy. So they take those test scores in third grade and they say, okay, this is the number we need to project for having prisons for in the next 15 years, because these kids that can't read in third grade are going to be our new citizens of our private prisons. I will say, there's so much to mention on education, but special education, they want to eliminate completely. They don't think that kids who have special education needs need to have classrooms to get intense teaching and training. So they want to completely go away with special education. And then in addition to that, they want all teachers to be armed. So if you think about the likelihood of a student going to get a teacher's gun and misusing it versus a teacher actually protecting the classroom, it really, the data shows that having teachers armed who do not know how to use a gun properly is a very dangerous proposition. So I'm gonna go ahead and go, because I could stay on education for the whole rest of the presentation, but healthcare. Does anyone know anyone in their family who's on insulin or has to get insulin every month? So probably at least half of this room knows someone who gets insulin. What the Biden-Harris administration was successful with doing was capping insulin at 30 if they get the coverage or not, I don't really care, because at the end of the day, I want the big pharma, the pharmaceuticals, he wants them to make all the money. So I will, hold for a quick second, so, want to see if you guys have any additional questions, or I may just keep going. We can't get, oh, okay, all right. So, so I'm gonna go ahead and go to the next slide. So, when it comes to abortion, and so this, I know that abortion gets all the coverage, but there are a lot of people who have trouble starting families. And so what he's also saying is that if you need help starting a family with IVF, that goes away. People who have ectopic pregnancies, where if you do not get the baby out, you will die. Basically, there have been women who have had to go across state lines to get treated because they're unable to get a doctor to treat them here in Georgia because of the fact that they don't want to be sued, the fact that it's illegal. And so the reversal of Roe versus Wade has had a lot of implications in primarily southern states. So states like Georgia, states like Alabama, literally are overstepping their bounds when it comes to women who are miscarrying babies. They're now having to decide, am I able to get the proper medical care that I need here in Georgia? Or do I have to worry about me potentially losing my life because a doctor is afraid to treat me now? Another thing is that they're trying to criminalize the US Postal Service for delivering any type of drugs. And then one of the things I want you guys to pay close attention to, this is not in there, but every scholar who has read this document is speculating that birth control will be next. So if you think about the number of people who use birth control, there's not only for you know, when they want to start their family, but also women who are going through really looking at hormone treatment. Birth control is really used for that too. So they're looking at eliminating birth control completely. All right, next slide. So this one I do want you to really pay attention to, because we saw this play out in his first administration, having people who are not experts in roles that they do not belong in. And so this also comes down to the quality of food that you're eating. If you have someone who's in the FDA role who does not understand the qualities that need to happen when it comes to food, when it comes to standards, we could be serving ourselves anything that could be causing cancer, causing disease, et cetera. So this is huge with the Chevron deference, to make sure that we do not put incompetent people like Betsy DeVos back in office, because those people don't care about us. All they care about is themselves, and we don't want people who are just in there getting money, doing behind the scenes deals, to be in those offices. In addition to that, this first point is that personnel level at all levels of the government to push Project 2025. So if you're at any level of the government in this administration, you need to be pushing out the values of Project 2025 with every decision you're making, with every type of policy that's been implemented. It needs to tie back to this document. But of course, what he wants to help is he wants to make sure that big corporations continue to have lower taxes, so that there's more money into the rich. So what he's proposing, guys, is basically there's going to be what's called a missing middle. And so a lot of our families, our friends and families, we are part of the middle class. And what he's proposing to do is to have an elite and everybody else, and the middle class sort of go away. All right, next. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on climate change, but basically his administration is so ignorant that they don't think that climate change is real. So you can see the effects of climate change, that we are seeing temperatures rise. We are seeing things in California happen. We're seeing things all over the world. And so everyone's explained to him that climate change is real. He continues to think that it's not. But he wants to basically remove funding from all organizations that are trying to work to advocate for us to continue to stay safe in this country. And also so that in all transparency, wants to be our generation, but for our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren, our great-great-great-great-grandchildren, that they still have a really safe environment to live in. Next.
So Elon Musk told him to pay attention to that.
Yeah.
Because we have no electric cars.
Yep. Yeah.
So, yeah, that's like, wait, no.
And literally for forwarding, so how many of us in here travel abroad where we've been out of the country before? And so lo and behold, none of us want to get sick when we're traveling abroad. But what he proposes is that if any organization that mentions LGBTQ, that mentions abortion, that mentions reproductive health, if they do any of that, they will not get funding from the United States anymore. And so if you happen to need help while traveling abroad, what Trump is proposing is that, if you're a woman and you need help, let's just say that you need help if you are having a medical emergency. If it mentions something like reproductive health, sexual reproductive rights, that organization may or may not be able to help you because of what Trump is proposing. In addition to that, organizations like the World Health Organization, United Nations, the World Trade Organization, he wants to basically say that we don't need our memberships there anymore. I can do it on my own. I don't need y'all's help anymore. And I think that we saw how he was such an embarrassment on the global stage when he always felt the need to just get in front for the picture, but not go over there to actually do any policy. And then next. This one is really concerning, especially for any of my school teachers in here. It used to be where our kids who were children of immigrants were safe in school, where you wouldn't come and do raids in schools. What he's proposing is that those soft areas, those soft zones like churches and schools and playgrounds, he's now basically saying that you can go and do raids at any of those locations for kids of undocumented parents. That used to be completely something that was just off bar. You would not do that. And DACA, he's just like, nope, take that completely away. The one thing that she did VP Kamala Harris did such a good job on in her debate was basically calling him out again on that there was a bipartisan deal for immigration that was on the table that he behind the scenes negotiated for it to not pass because it wasn't going to be him getting the credit for the deal. So completely ignorant decision because it was bipartisan approval, but he came in and basically made it dead on arrival. Next. I don't need to read the headlines. You guys see this every day. You guys see the nonsense that he says every day, so I won't bore you with this. And then you can go on to the next slide.
It's gonna be a brief video.
It may not be in here because you can go on to that.
So-
Oh, okay, yeah, okay.
It's a brief video.
They're gonna play.
Yeah, click right on it. In the middle.
Maybe not.
Yeah, we can.
Oh,
Okay.
hold on. Ooh,
Okay, yeah, we can send it out
Yeah.
later.
Yeah, wait a second. You didn't have the access. I'm sorry.
But the final thing I wanted to wrap it up is just go over a brief summary of things that I want you to take your phones out and just take one picture of this slide. Because in addition to the handout that Michelle gave you, one slide that will help you with your friends and family is this slide here. Just go to the next slide. Okay, there it is. So this slide, I want you to take a picture of this and next one also. So it is a dangerous takeover. Believe him when he says that you won't have to vote again after this election. He's saying that because he really does want a dictatorship. If you think about what's going on in China right now, China is run by someone who has a term until his death. Like he is in office until his death. That's what he wants. He wants to have what Putin and what Russia and China have. And so when you think about what are called the BRIC countries, Brazil, Russia, India, and China, China dictatorship, Russia dictatorship. And so you think about the fact that he wants to really emulate, and those BRIC countries are countries that we rely on heavily from an economic prosperity perspective, because literally we're doing a lot of importing and exporting with those countries. But it doesn't mean that we want to run our countries the way that those countries are being run. Anyone in here, just when you look at the way that China is run, no one wants to live there and have that quality of life. It was created by Trump and by those closest, for Trump, by those closest to him. And so every time he denies it, you can just put another video up there of him saying how he loves Project 2025. So he can't deny what he has backed for so long. Yeah. Yes, so if you haven't seen the video side by side of him saying he doesn't know what it is, and then there's another video saying, oh, I love Project, so he can't. Yeah.
Change the name of it. That's gonna change the name of it.
Yep.
And he's raised money at his.
And then the next slide is the one that I really want you guys to take another picture of. So basically, he wants to eliminate our checks and balances. He wants the United States to become a country of where he runs the Supreme Court, he runs the legislative branch, and all decisions go through him. He wants to destroy reproductive rights. He wants to take away healthcare protections. Our educational system, we will not recognize it anymore. Social Security and taxes that our loved ones have worked so hard to earn. He wants to take away Social Security. He wants to continue to raise taxes. And then for anyone who works to get overtime, he's saying that if you work over 40 hours, it's just 40 hours. You don't get paid for it. No overtime anymore. And then there's so many people who are, and this is what is very disheartening about his organization. He thinks that food assistance is just for, people who just aren't out here trying to get things done or trying to make it here in America. And there's so many people who are on food assistance who literally just had a bad break. He wants to cut food assistance off for everybody. So he wants those 20 million people who are getting food assistance to not get it anymore. And next up. So this is a little, we still are talking about update to Tim and to Kamala and Tim, but certainly the stakes of this election couldn't be any higher. We come in here in a very nonpartisan way, but wink, wink, please make sure that you get out there and that you vote and you take your friends to vote. So I want to give you guys just some critical deadlines. October 7th is the last day to register to vote. I do want you to check your voter registration on a regular basis up to October 7th at mvp.ga. mvp.sos.ga.gov. So mvp.sos.ga.gov. Please share that with anyone that you can. They are kicking us out of the polls daily off the register. Even if you voted in the primary, that does not guarantee that you're still going to be active on October 7th. October 15th is the first day of early voting. I highly recommend that you get out there and do it early. And then November 5th is obviously the last day of election day.
Don't forget absentee.
Yes, and if you have college students or if you have a loved one overseas in the military, please get them to request an absentee ballot. They can do that today.
Because the last day is October 7th as well.
Yes.
To get in.
And then the final slide is just one more.
One more, hit it again.
One more. So this is really the slide I want you guys to take a picture of. So this is I promise you I won't make you take any more pictures. But literally, this is where you talk to your friends and family. This is the recap. So I'm not going to read through all this again, but this is the one that you talk to your friends and family about. And then once you guys get that, if you do want to go and just get our take on Project 2025 with our rebuttal to all of these points, you can go to this website on this next slide.
One more slide.
So go to trumpsproject2025.com, and this is our rebuttal to all the points that they try to make, what the Harris administration stands for when it comes to every single one of those points. She didn't get to it as deeply as she would have wanted to during the debate because you just can't cover all that stuff in like 2-minute sound bites. But here are all of our rebuttal here. She still gets an A+ for that debate because she killed them. But with that said, I'm gonna go ahead and sit down. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to give them through Michelle, and we will get answers back to you guys from our office. So thank y'all so much.
And And I will let you all ask questions to both our guests tonight. But before I do, I'm gonna let Michayla Arciaga come up.
I'll tell you all of it.
Yeah, she's gonna go over the
Can
slides.
we refresh this link really fast?
The
The window,
previous,
the presentation, we
Okay,
just
sure.
refreshed it before you started.
I'll let her come up and introduce herself, tell you the
The other
name of her organization.
Just like refresh the link that was pulled up.
She's an education advocate, and she's gonna go over Project 2025 and talk about, for those who care about education, how it affects us at the end.
I know that it matters to everybody in the room, but as Edward Paul said, I'm Michayla Arciaga. I work for the Intercultural Development Research Association. We just go by IDRA. This is much easier. And we are a K-12 education-focused civil rights nonprofit. So I wear a C3 hat. I am nonpartisan at all times. But we do quite a few things. We, as I mentioned, are an education civil rights nonprofit. We started in Texas 50 years ago. We were experts on several key civil rights cases that secured the rights for students who speak multiple languages or are learning English, students who may be undocumented regardless of their immigration status. And since then, we have expanded that work to incorporate the scope of the rights of all children, particularly children of color. We started working in Georgia in 2020 with the hiring of our regional director, Terrence Wilson. And then I was brought on in 2021. Before that, I was a high school math teacher. I taught in Atlanta Public Schools, and then I taught in Duval County, Jacksonville before that. We have a couple major focuses of our work. We do research. We do, beautiful. Okay. Can we go 2 slides, please? So that we work in 5 key areas. We work on fair and full funding, which is our foundational key issue. We work on dismantling the school to prison pipeline, culturally inclusive curriculum and learning environment. So that's things like teacher practices as well. College access and preparation, focusing on like the high school preparation side of getting into college and succeeding and staying in college. And then language opportunity and access, supporting language learners and multilingual students. Next slide, please. So we do that. Our team does that in a couple of different ways. The majority of my work is focusing on policy research, community engagement, and direct advocacy at all of the agency levels, mostly at the state. I'm one of the few people in the state of Georgia who just does education at the state level. A lot of our education orgs, you'll probably see, are either heavily concentrated in one geographic location or they don't do just education. So they're spread over thin. I get to just do education all the time, which is both a blessing and a curse. We do a lot of direct advocacy at the Georgia General Assembly, but 3/4 of my job is coming to do things like this. And I work with a group, I run a coalition that is focused on statewide advocacy. Can we go to the next one, please? Sharing our vision for what we think public schools could look like, and also training folks to lead that work themselves, because we do believe that communities are the best position to solve the problems that our schools are facing. And so this is the vision that we as an organization have for our students. I'll share this. You don't have to like write anything down or take pictures unless you'd like to. But the key guiding vision of our work is that all children are valuable and not a single one is expendable. That is not necessarily the mindset that is taken in our schools these days, and we recognize that. We're thinking about systemic solutions, not necessarily individual solutions. So sometimes we come into conflict with folks who are trying to just get their kids through the schools, while also understanding that it's going to take a while for us to fix what's going on, especially in Gwinnett. So we also, the other one that I'd really like to just like hone on in is that we are all accountable for our learner success. Yes. And that's already been raised up once here tonight, so I'll just re-up it. It's going to take all of our communities and centering our communities to really to strengthen our schools to kind of be that forefront of democracy that we expect them to be. Yes. That being said, we go to the next slide. We know that that's in direct conflict with Project 2025. So I'm not going to talk about all of the education bits of Project 2025. I think Ms. McCoy mentioned that it's over 900 pages. The education section alone is over 60 pages. So there's a lot of things. These are our 5 main focus ones. I'm going to also kind of tie in some of the things that are happening in Georgia. This is derived from a report that we did by our National Director of Policy, who is an Atlanta native. She lives in San Antonio now, but I try to convince her to move back anytime I can. So this is directly from her report. I will give you guys a QR code that links you directly to her report that's much more comprehensive. But as I mentioned, as we go through these 5 kind of key issues and key threats, I'll try to tie those into what is happening at the state level. Before I do that though, can we go to the next one, please? Sorry, I forgot my clicker. I do want to share that we have a coalition and y'all are busy already. I know this. So, Mr. Cox, y'all are welcome to join this coalition. We want as many folks to be in this space as possible. We are a statewide education org. I have representation from the 4 major corners, except for maybe the Northwest. But we are incredibly diverse. We are led by our mostly parents and teachers of color. We focus on, you'll probably recognize these are identical to the ones that we do in IDRA, but that is because our members care about these issues, right? We started as a coalition against classroom censorship in 2021. But when you're only working against something, that really limits what you're allowed to work for. And so we expanded to working for education justice. Right now we are kind of in our fall learning phase. And so we're really focusing on building up that capacity of our members. So we are doing a series of learning education justice 101. This is training our folks how to look at advocacy work from a liberatory consciousness and really like being mindful and inclusive. It's really meant for a lot of our well-meaning ally members to really make sure that they are capturing that lens, to make sure they are thinking mindfully, maybe considering whether or not they are the best voice to be centered on every issue, and really being mindful about bringing in the voices of folks who are most impacted, especially our Black and Brown students. We are also trying to prep folks around understanding who are the players in the education landscape, and how do we advocate in those levels and navigate those. And then we are also doing some advocacy prep where we're teaching our folks, here's how to find bills, here's how to read them, here's how to change them, and here's how to play in the game where they really don't want us playing. And so that's what we're focusing on right now. All of those are available as, I guess I try not to lump Georgia NAACP with any specific geographic group, but y'all have access to these if you are interested. That QR code takes you to all of our coalition stuff, our trainings, our this report as well. I'll show it again at the end. So if we can move on. So first, so going back to what I talked about, there are 5 major issues. Ms. McCoy hit on the cutting of billions of dollars. The way that looks, not just in defunding the Department of Education, is very specifically is canceling out quite a bit of funding that we receive from the federal government. The state bears a constitutional obligation to educate our students, but the feds provide key funds for supporting our most vulnerable kids, especially when it comes to things like Title I programming. That's going to be not just free and reduced lunch, it's programming, it's staffing, it's resources, it's computers, technology, those kinds of things. Really key funding that tries to close the gap between our kids who might be living in poverty and their more wealthy peers. Another one is IDEA funding. That's the Individuals with Disabilities in Education Act. Anyone know someone who maybe had an IEP or was a student with disabilities or maybe was a student with disabilities? Yeah. We don't get enough of this funding already. We've never met the federal obligation. This would cancel out IDEA funding entirely. And that's part of how they would eliminate support for students with disabilities, right? 2 school years ago, we received $655 million in Title I funds. That would go away. We spend over $30 billion on education in Georgia, but again, when we talk about Title I, when we talk about federal funding, that is our most vulnerable kids, the kids who are already facing those obstacles, just getting to school, right? So that's one of the ways. I will also say, this is part of, I lost a slide. Basically, there are 3 key understandings I want y'all to take away from this. The first is that November 2024 is a very key battle, but Project 2025 is a war plan. Project 2025 is going to happen. They are going to keep trying to come back for it. After 2025, they're going to come for it in 2026. They are building their pipeline so that they can keep chipping away at what we have worked, well, not me, but you know, we have worked so hard to secure. The second is that all of this is local, right? Project 2025 is already playing out in Georgia. We have passed legislation at the state level that are some of the key tenets of Project 2025. I only know the education ones because there's a whole lot of things I have to follow, but I'll try and tie in like where those are. So when it comes to funding, when we talk about defunding our public schools, the state of Georgia, the last 10 years, has shifted its share of the burden of funding our schools from over 50% to less than 30% in the last 10 years. Who do you think is bearing the majority of the cost of educating our kids? You are. Property owners, parents, community members, all of us are bearing the burden. And it's not that we shouldn't, but the state has a constitutional obligation, right? The state has a $16 billion surplus.
Right.
So these little methods of siphoning away funds, redirecting them to other places. This is one of the key ways that we undermine our education system. Thank you. Dismantling public education with vouchers. So you may have heard we had a major piece of legislation passed this year, Senate Bill 233. It was a voucher that would create what are called educational savings accounts. We already have 2 existing voucher programs in Georgia. Does anyone know how much we spend on them? We spend over 200 million, which is because we have very specific guardrails in place for them right now. We know the goal at the local level is to create limitless, boundless vouchers. Does anyone know of any states that have one of those? You guys, do I have any big nerds in here? So Florida, Arizona just recently removed all of the guardrails around their vouchers. Guess how much they spent on education for vouchers this year? $1 billion just for private school vouchers. In Arizona, they basically bankrupted themselves because they didn't anticipate how much it was actually going to cost them to fund that voucher. That's what they're talking about here. So at the federal level, we have a very specific voucher that is specifically for educating students with disabilities. They want to remove that guardrail. They want to make vouchers for everybody. I think the proposition is $1.1 for every $1 spent on public education. And again, there's all kinds of problems with this. We know the goal is to undermine and defund public schools. Here in Georgia, our schools, our private schools, I'm working on a report on this right now, are already not held to the same anti-discrimination like standards as their public schools or the performance standards. And this is not a judgment of anyone who sends their kids to private schools. It's that our public schools serve the majority of the children in Georgia, 1.7 million kids in Georgia. And so they need to be, any school that is receiving dollars that are moved away from those schools need to be held to the same standard. I mean, and granted, I understand that public schools are also not meeting that standard. I just want to be very clear. But we have better guardrails in place for parents who are dealing with discrimination. All right.
Right, because they're asking the parents to do the opposite.
Man. Well, and it's, so what I'm looking at right now is all of the private schools that receive funding from the state of Georgia and looking at if they even have an admissions policy posted publicly. That's not a requirement. They don't have to disclose which children they will receive or accept before parents send them there. They have to meet federal requirements, Title VI, which is race, color, and national origin. But
I think that's all they have.
that's all it is for most of them. Some of them are really comprehensive, but that's at their benevolence, not at any sort of guardrail by the state. Yes. Can we go to the next one, please? Here's where we start to get just big scary. I mean, all of it is terrible and scary, but here's where we're talking really significant harm, especially for vulnerable kids, especially here in Georgia, where the Office of Civil Rights is kind of one of the last defenses we have for protecting our kids from discrimination right now here. So they want to roll the Office of Civil Rights into the Department of Justice, essentially dissolving the Office of Civil Rights. The Office of Civil Rights is responsible for investigating and responding to claims of discrimination in our schools. I'm sorry, this is not a very fun presentation. They also want to eliminate regulations that protect students of color from being unfairly disciplined and also being over-identified for special ed services. Eliminate protections for LGBTQ+ students. This is already happening. And then they also want to track and restrict any DEI programs, which Ms. McCoy also referenced. This is also happening also already in Georgia. You can see down here, this is something we worked on in 2023 in the summer. Our Professional Standards Commission, is anyone familiar? Do I have any teachers? Okay. Professional Standards Commission is responsible for certifying all educators in the state of Georgia. They set the standards that the preparation programs teachers have to meet for all of the public universities in Georgia, or anyone wanting to become certified in Georgia. They purged any language referencing diversity, equity, inclusion, advocacy, cultural relevance in those preparation standards for our teachers. So when we think about pipelines, when we think about the environment that they're trying to create, you're taking away the training that arguably makes our teachers most equipped to teach our kids. Y'all are very familiar with what happened with AP African American Studies. That's a derivative of the HB 1084 Divisive Concepts Law. Those are all things that have already happened here. Those are things we're working to repeal. I do want to be clear. These battles are not lost, but it is a little harder when it gets passed. So, next one, please. So this is a little convoluted, and I'm sorry my text got a little messed up, but in 2014, President Obama issued some regulations and guidelines through the Office of Civil Rights, again, basically explaining how to incorporate anti-discrimination into our practices at the school level, particularly as it pertains to discipline. So what this means is that schools now had to take into account disparities when it comes to disciplining students, particularly disparate racial discipline practices, which we know are very prevalent. For example, this is actually 2023. Black students made up only 37.5% of our student population, but we're 54.3% of our disciplined population. That's the kind of thing you have to take into consideration under the 2014 guidelines. President Trump in 2018, I'm sorry to say the name, rolled back those recommendations. The Biden administration has re-implemented them. Project 2025 is saying an all-out ban on any sort of considerations. And that's a recurring theme throughout the entire document, is just, we're not going to consider race for anything anymore. We're, right.
Yeah, I like that word better.
Fair enough. Yeah. Yes. Next one, please. And then finally, so the last takeaway that I want y'all to take from this is that an attack on any civil right is an attack on all the civil rights. When we start undermining any of them, so that attack on Obergefell leads to an attack on Loving, leads to an attack on the Civil Rights Act. There's a series of articles that came out by a Politico thinker, basically calling for the repeal of the Civil Rights Act. And I recognize that the threat to democracy is also part of this and is a much larger implication, but they're also chipping away towards this other goal, where if they can't get their fascist dictatorship,
Right.
that's the other goal they're working towards, right? So there's a lot of language around immigrant students. The raids in our schools is a major concern. What is the root of that is that they are coordinating an attack on a case called Plyler v. Doe, which we actually worked on, which basically said that no child can be discriminated based on their documentation status. Every child has a right to school, a free and public education, regardless of their documentation status. Heritage Foundation, again, has popped back up. They put out a brief this summer, basically explaining how state legislators can set up legislation that would lead to lawsuits to turn over Plyler v. Doe. We had a bill this year that has passed, House Bill 1105, that specifically targeted the operation of local police to target anyone who they consider to be possibly undocumented. And the way that language was written, it applies to our schools as well. So again, these things are happening, and it's happening here. And we are part of the Heritage Foundation pipeline. We have quite a significant presence in our legislature. There is kind of a tug of war going on, but these are kind of 5 of the big ones. There's one other I'd like to mention because it is something that happened this most recent legislative session. And this is in no way to devalue the role of our servicemen and women, but Another part of Project 2025 is requiring the ASVAB of every student. And what we know is that overwhelmingly, students of color, Black students in particular, are targeted for the ASVAB to channel them into the military instead of channeling them to college or the career. And this year there was a law passed that requires every high school to offer the ASVAB every year. Students are not required to take it, but their parents have to opt them out. And again, seemingly harmless, but when you look at the piece of it in the full puzzle, they're making these strides in that direction to undermine the role that our schools play. So that's a lot of things. I want us all to take a breath too, because it's okay. All right, I got some steps for us. Next one, please. So there's a lot of things. And I know that this is not me trying to preach to everybody, because I know this group already knows that all voting is local. But I think what's really key is folks understanding the importance of our down ballot races. And I know we talk about that all the time. But if you can hold on to Project 2025 isn't just a DC issue, it's a home issue. All those recommendations that were given to us, I'm going to take that sheet home like immediately. Those are all things that can translate to things that are happening here. If you have your key issue, if you care more about healthcare, if you care about voting, if you care about housing justice, all of those have sections in Project 2025. But also our legislature is doing things that are in the Project 2025 playbook. And so that is what's really key. Join a coalition. It doesn't have to be my coalition. There's a lot of folks doing this work, and we are stronger together, which this is one of those, right? But really the power of local action, and also shame on our local elected officials, has been some of the only things that worked in the last few years. Sorry? Yeah. I try not to underestimate the power of shame. And the last is support our schools. Again, we're all responsible for the success of our kids and our students. And that can look like a lot of different things. That doesn't mean you got to roll up and do tutoring every afternoon. It can be just like having a good rapport with your kids' teachers. And I know that they're not always open to that, but these are a few of the things. This is my QR for the coalition. If you don't want to have to add another meeting to your calendar, I do during legislative session really only. I send out like a full report on all of the education bills that we're tracking. I have a tracker that has all of the education bills, and we update it every day basically. So if you're just trying to get updates, that's if you sign up on that coalition registration, that's one way to do it. If you want our programming, even better. Well, you'll get that offer. You'll get invites for that as well. And then there's all kinds of stuff in there. There's a bunch of our partners who are also doing similar work in different parts of the country or state. And yeah, so I will also say, to end on a strong note, as scary as all of this is, we know the antidote is local action, right? And even though we've had some really terrible losses in the last 5 years or the last 4 years that I've been doing this job, I will say I have had more engagement, more enthusiasm from parents who and community members who education is their issue, who have been engaged in this than ever before, that are learning these processes, that are coming to the Capitol, that are picking up that torch so that we don't all have to feel like you're fighting this battle alone. And so I do think that is something to hold on to and to know that there's momentum that you can be part of. I mean, you're already part of it, but the good work is happening, and it's not going to just happen without a fight. So yeah. Do you want to be mindful of our time? Because I know I'm a little over, so.
That was it.
That was it. Unless y'all have other questions.
And I'm asking Michelle and Ms. McCoy to come back up, just in case the room has questions y'all want to ask them, y'all don't mind. Or Michaela, so we get the open floor session of our meeting, so right now, if y'all got any questions for anything y'all heard that y'all want to ask them. I do got some questions for them, but I'm gonna open it up to the room for you all.
Thank you. You guys too. That's awesome.
I got no question, all this information again. Oh, go ahead, whoever got it.
So, I don't really have a question. make sure that they're studying for that, but they get the higher score, and so they can get a job to where maybe they're not studying for long. So that's just my personal opinion, but I don't want people to leave out here being afraid of.
I think the thing is that they're making it mandatory, so that's all good, but no, if you should adoption, you're not making it mandatory.
Well, and I agree with that, but it's not, there's other things that go along with it. The test is just, it's like the going to college, taking the SAT, right? That's just one thing.
Which is optional.
Which is optional, right? But there's other implements that come into place. So even if you take that test, it doesn't mean you can get into the military because there's medical facts behind their fitness and other
It's
things.
just, I don't disagree with you, Brenda. I'm just saying optional versus mandatory.
That's not.
That's it.
No, no,
Optional versus mandatory.
no.
And let me say, I totally agree with you. And I'm-
Hold on, everybody trying
I
to.
totally agree with you and I'm not against, I'm sorry.
No, I wasn't like arguing with you. I'm putting a different perspective. I just don't want people to leave the.
No, and you're good, and I applaud you for that. But the part is that mainly in that mandatory, part, most kids that will be affected are the kids that's not gonna already study. That's why and I'm saying that a lot of times those kids are the problems kids at that school, and they're not even studying for the ACT or the SAT, to get better grades, to even have a better opportunity in college. So it still will affect them in a way that they're gonna, like you said, go to the front lines. They're not gonna be that, and I'm not saying all, out of 100, hopefully, we could get 50 or more to do the right thing. But a lot of times in our situation, in those schools and in those types of public schools that are not scoring high already, those kids will be affected a lot more. Our kids will be
So
affected
it's
a
not
lot
the kids'
more.
fault.
Huh?
Now it's our leaders, their fault. You know what I'm saying? If our kids aren't doing well, it's not the kids' fault.
No, I'm not blaming the kids.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
I'm just saying that unfortunately they'll be caught in a situation or in a system,
And that's why
once
we have to do
again,
something.
that is not going to help them.
Yeah.
But the disparity also is that it's not being required for private schools because they're,
Right,
he's saying
exactly,
the rich kids don't have.
exactly. That's what I'm saying. So who does it?
There's a
Right.
thing in that, right now, there's 1.3 million service members, only 40% are minorities. In the Coast Guard, he represents only 16%. So
Right.
we do need more of that representation in our military because we don't have the numbers, and eventually we won't have the numbers to defend our actual country. So that's.
Okay,
Hold on, everybody settle down one at a time, because we are streaming live, and people can't hear, so raise your hand if you want to speak, please. Diva, I seen you first, go ahead.
well, my thing is, I'm 100% with what he said, my father was in the military. And at the end of the day, if those kids are not scoring that high, then they are scoring low to be projected and going to prison, correct? So at least they get, a lot of them are projected. They're projected.
Hold on, y'all, let Neva speak, please.
Let me speak. At the end of the day, it may not even be a war when it comes up, right? So we're talking about we waiting for a war, but in the meantime, if it's not a war, they can get a home, they can get a free college, they can get a lot. My dad was able to pay child support for me, do that, So it's a lot of pluses with that. You see what I'm saying? They get mental health care. They get a lot of things that if they didn't go, they would have a backup. So I'm 100% with what he's saying.
Right.
So she has experience that she wants to share.
All right. You gave back your time.
I yield back my time.
So I used to work in high school and I worked with the different recruiters. And I helped to coordinate the administration of the ASVAB. So you have a variety of students who want to take the test. And of course, it's optional. And at the end of the day, they decide whether or not they want to pursue whatever field of the military. I think the highest score you have to have in order to be in the Air Force. I think the Air Force is a little harder to get into from my. So it is an option. My father was a veteran, my husband's a veteran. So yes, there are many benefits to that. But I think the point is it should be optional, because if not, you don't want it to be a situation where any student feels as though that's their only option. And we want to make sure that they are options.
Can I also?
And I'll
clarify,
give
since
a
I brought it
brief
up?
summary on that too. Okay, before I let you go, I'm gonna look, because I see his hand when Tigers was up. Go ahead, sir.
My name is Gamel DeWeese. My company is the Up and Man Travel Behavioral Health Services and Anger Management. Anytime anybody's forced to do anything, you can get a bad situation out of them automatically. So even when you force them to go to this service thing, they're gonna act up, either run away, they get arrested, or either start killing people because they don't care, because they don't wanna be there. So forcing somebody is not the right answer. Other thing I like to say is out there, again, I'm a behavioral health professional. I heard what you guys were saying. If any of you guys need my services, need my help, to help you do anything, please reach out to me. We talk about this later on, but my thing is about forcing anybody is not the answer.
And I'll say this just to lower the temperature in the room for the military people, because again, my brother is a retired veteran. I got uncle is a veteran, uncles are a veteran, cousins are veteran. I'm sure we all got veterans in our family. I don't think anybody here is saying being anti-military. I think the message, overall message is there shouldn't be policies or things being done, put in place to create poverty or to create bad schools in an effort to push people into, I use a word my chick like to use, the economic draft, which means I'm joining the military because I ain't got no other options. And I'm not, and it's a great option. My brother's somebody, he's retired, he's doing very well. He got all types of streams of income, most of them coming from the military and plus his regular job. So it is a great option. However, we don't want a situation where our schools are being intentionally sabotaged in order to force people into that line of work. It needs to be a choice. So I see this hand, I see my education chair up. Good Lord, we gonna talk. I hope y'all bring up some different questions. Michaela, I'll let you go first.
I did want to respond because there was something that I brought up. And again, I just want to reiterate the point that there are individual solutions versus systemic solutions. And I think it's really important for us to root this part of Project 2025 in the larger ecosystem of what they're trying to do, which is undermine and dismantle and create that disparate system where some children are channeled towards success and some children are channeled towards the military, working like labor. Right. And so I think I say that, and I'm third generation Navy grad. I went to college on my dad's GI Bill, so I'm not one to ever degrade in any way any branch of the military. But I do think that when again we start eliminating choice and we start deciding one group of children is better or more deserving than the other, it creates this system, and we have the blueprint to inform that. We have seen that in historic patterns in the past, and so that is the concern more that I would want to raise is like being on alert and knowing one that parents have the choice for their students still in state, knowing that happened, but also knowing that parents still have that choice and to be on alert and to communicate that with each other. And if they or their children do want to pursue the military, they still have that. They actually now have arguably easier options because they can't access the ASVAB at school. But we have to also think about the ecosystem this is contributing to and whether or not it is going to exacerbate some of the existing disparities we know already exist, which is limiting options.
You already young lady in the back.
And I just wanted to say, it's not that they're trying to implement that right now, but if he gets Project 2025, then it will be mandatory where your children will not have a choice. So he's saying that why not prepare them so that they don't have to go on the front line? They could be up in an office someplace or someplace a little safer. Because I went to Iraq too, and I wasn't supposed to because I was in service. But see, in the situation, active duty would push reservists and National Guard wherever they want. So I wound up in Iraq. But my aspect, I studied because a soldier told me, in order not to be an infantry or something that you want to be at the first line, you got to study and make them high scores. So I studied. But if he had not told me that, I would have probably been in infantry someplace.
But you still have a choice.
Well, let me say, hold on.
No, what you said.
So let me just say one thing to what you just said. Again, we know in situations like this, if it's something that becomes mandatory, our children will be the ones up front. There's never been a situation where our children wasn't in harm's way. So, my thing is to again, I don't think anybody's in here being anti-military at all. I just think the goal is to make sure children has options and situations are not created that are forced to be able to do it. So I think, Second Vice President had his hand up before you leave, so go ahead, John. John, did you?
So,
Hold on.
I'm feeling mysterious.
so I think the way it was meant to be understood is that there is a goal to normalize the process. And to normalize the process so that when they institute the mandatory, you're already used to it. There's no reason. I think that particular process for going through the military and so forth, is a great process if that's, where you're going. There are some people who want, my son was considered in the Space Force because he's an engineering person. So that's great if that's what you want. What we know is that things get abused. Good things are put out to us and it's sold that. But then there's an abuse coming. And so what we understand is that there is an abuse plan. And so we want to make sure that we keep an eye on it. And I think that's what was being fixed, is that we want to take and watch to make sure that what's coming down the pipeline, you're prepared for. If your child is interested in going to the military, of course, you want to prepare them well for whatever it is they come. And I think the military is a great option for a number of people. But once again, we're trying to keep an eye on the abuses, and we don't want to allow them to normalize things in our community so that we're asleep when it happens and we're not prepared to do this. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Neva,
Last
last point, we're gonna move on.
I'm
Tracy, you've been talking out of time.
Okay, so I'm a psychologist, okay? So at the end of the day, I know that when you have to go to college, there are standard tests you have to take that is mandatory.
Right.
So I'm trying to figure out what is the difference. You have to take a mandatory test to go to college. And do all those other things that we have to do, go, get a PhD and all stuff like that, right? So when you have to do all that, and then what is the difference? At least those people that can't get into college, but you do have to have a certain type of GPA, or you have to have a SAT or GRE and all those scores. Those are mandatory also. So you still have to have a mandatory standard.
Well, Neva, I think, go ahead and finish it.
But the state doesn't run the SAT or the ACT for every school. It's also part of it. So when they make,
hold on.
so this is a shall versus may situation in the law. And so in this law, it says the school shall offer it, which means that it has to be funded to be offered. Some schools offer the ACT and the SAT as an option, but it is not funded by the state that we offer the SAT and the ACT at every school. And so what this is doing is saying the ASVAB will be offered at every school, but not, we don't treat, every public school. But the SAT and the ACT are not treated in the same.
When you get to college, you can still get the government.
But to access the test at all, it's on our students bear the burden, or their families bear the burden of accessing the test at that level.
Yeah, so what I do is.
I'm happy to chat.
For the sake of time, y'all talk about that offline, because I think there's a little bit of. I understand what you're saying, but I think the part, I think the disconnect. I think the disconnect comes in, is not that they're saying that you shouldn't have to take a test to go to the military, right? That's your choice. It's your choice to take a test if you want to go to college. Nobody's saying anything about taking a test. I think the issue, it becomes when you're forcing it upon us, and you're creating situations where you're giving kids no alternatives. Similar to how we, you know, in our community, it's a lot of these schools, they love our kids, they can kick the football, they can throw the football, they can kick the basketball, because they're selling them on dreams of getting to the NFL or the NBA. When again, it's not, that's not realistic. You're creating poverty situation where you're driving our kids into something that you're not giving them options. So we don't want a situation where, like I said, to use one of my judgments would say, you don't want our children to be part of economic draft. Again, my brother was part of economic draft. The reason he joined the military because we grew up in a poor town. My mother raised us on minimum wage. That was the best option he felt like he had to go. So what we're saying is we don't need to create situations where that's the only option. And many of our family members, again, the military was the best option for them. They didn't have the grades to go to college. So what we're saying is we don't want you defunding our schools and then funding our children to this, because again, it's gonna be our kids. If a war breaks out, they're gonna be the ones that's on the front line. It's not gonna be the rich white kids or the middle class white kids. It's gonna be a lot of our poor Black and brown children that live in a lot of low income communities on the front line doing that work. And again, so again, I'm gonna go to Tracy. You got 60 seconds.
Oh, wait, I had something.
60 seconds. Keone, and then we gotta move on, because we gotta wrap up.
So I really want to kind of piggyback on this gentleman with respect to behavioral too, and the fact that this would have on our children. And I'm saying that because I'm a business police officer with Gwinnett County. Yesterday, I volunteered with Jay-Z, I forget whatever you call it, but anyway, the kids learn how to shop and save their money, budgeting, all of this stuff. The junior achievement was really, really great. Well, this hard thing was a young lady, we were sixth graders. She couldn't read, and she didn't know how to write. When she was sixth grade. All I did was I just stopped her, and she was sitting over, and I said, what's the matter? And she just kind of, she cut her off, went straight to her, and, you know, but so what I'm saying is, she didn't let herself down, and I'm not gonna blame the parents, even though I don't know the situation, but she's in an institution. Municipality where all of our kids, they're born right in education. So those who slip through the cracks, which is far too many of them, and here they are, she just scared, don't want to say anything, that's okay. So I know it's a million of them too. The point is, because she's not scoring well, she didn't let herself down. These educators who are just coming, some people just get a check for a pension, and that's it. But our kids, so now here she is on her way out, and guess what? She has to go to the military. No. So again, we talk about options, but we're not providing options. And when I say we're not providing, they should have them. Options for a better education or to get an education, but not, well, because you didn't score well, because the school isn't doing well, you gotta go here. I'm not mad. My daughter was just deployed. She's in the Air Force. I got one baby girl. I'm having a fit. All I needed her to do was come home with all 10 toes and 10 fingers and her mind straight. So I get it. I'm not against it, but it's gotta be an option. But right now, our kids need way more than just being told that's where you're going because you weren't successful or you failed when they didn't fail. Now mentally they're going in there emotionally messed up at the thought of, like, this is a punishment. What did I do? Why can't I go here? Because we got a lot of adults who let them down. And now you got an orange man getting ready to let them down? I just want to say that.
Keone, youth advisor.
First question is concerning the police, the IDRA. And you mentioned that it's a part of the state government. I'm trying to get your connection.
Oh, we're not part of any government agency. We are an independent nonprofit, nonpartisan nonprofit. So we are a entirely separate body. We are not funded. We have some federal funding, but we are not funded like in any way as a extension of a government body. We work closely with many of the bodies just because we tend to try and advise on practices, policies at the legislature, as well as Department of Education, the state, what is it called? The Board of Regents, this Professional Standards Commission. So we work with many of the agencies, but we do not work for any of them, much I'm delighted to say.
And then your name is independent, you said, right?
Intercultural research, intercultural development research
So
association.
your aspect just focus on area.
We only do education. Our organization only does K-12 education, so we only touch higher ed a little bit, and we don't do early education. I pay attention to it as needed, but I get to focus on just K-12 education policy and, community learning.
Well, for those who were excited about the discussion about military education, I'm pro child. But as a part of the youth aspect of the NAACP, so for all y'all who are excited, Mr. Arthur Reese and I, we invite you to join the youth.
That was good stuff. Mic drop.
Please give us information that you can access online right now, so that many people who are excited, pumped up, want to make a difference in the area of education. As my daughter emphasized, we're emphasizing leadership, leaders of great courage to build great community and to inspire great change. That's what we aim to do. The recruiting, as she talked about, excited about, we are compliant and able to do business in the state of Georgia and Gwinnett County to bring youth on. And so the recruiting is big, AXO, that's the area of leadership, that's president reference, and then the aspect of emphasizing community, and then definitely education, entrepreneurship. And as he talked about in the area of military, I'm not sure if you, with the opportunity that with his branch of the military, they can be in school and make how much a year before they go to college? I want to understand how much money they make before they serve again.
So making, we have a scholarship program with the Coast Guard. It's called C-Spot. You go to any type of minority service institute, HBCU, HSI, that stuff. Pick you up on your sophomore year, you get 60 grand starting off, you get your college. You get your college education paid for. On top of that, you're getting 60,000 a year as a paycheck. On top of that, you're getting your free medical. Once you graduate, you become officer of the United States Coast Guard. And after that, sky's the limit after that, so.
You only have to commit 4 years.
And he just commit 4 years.
All right.
That's accurate.
Thank y'all for that detail.
So he's talking about that in terms of the military aspect, you know, the importance of having trade, the opportunity to aid the trade in the area of education. My daughter, she wouldn't say it, she graduated at 16, here in Gwinnett County.
Good job, young lady.
She graduated at 15.
Oh.
And so I'm glad that they clarified the aspect. We have to give all three of the ladies, please, let's give them.
Before I let Shaniqua go, questions related to Project 2025, please keep it right there. Shaniqua, go ahead.
Say a lot of you, our members left already, but please on your way out, please scan the QR code. That's on the side of the door. That's our attendance sheet. So that's it.
Yeah. All right, did y'all have any more questions for these young ladies about Project 2025? We get to wrap up.
Y'all coming back next month?
That's it. So as we get ready to close, again, I just want to remind everybody, follow us on Facebook at Gwinnett NAACP. Follow us on YouTube at Gwinnett County NAACP. Follow us on GwinnettNAACP.com.
No, and
So, hold on, everybody, the meeting ain't over. Please settle down. Haven't adjourned this quite yet. Reese, please sit for a second. So as we come to the close, October 10th through the 12th will be our state convention. Our next October meeting will be to be announced. If it does follow the same dates of our state convention, we'll have to figure out the date we're gonna move our October meeting to. So if you're already a member, you're on our email list, You'll get an email from the secretary when the next October general meeting will take place. That being said, for those following us online, if go down and follow us on social media, we'll post it on social media when the next general meeting will take place. Meeting's adjourned. I will see y'all next month in October for our general meeting.